Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. Tonight we'll be previewing tomorrow's clash away at Burton, and we will review Charlton as a blockbuster at Bloomfield Road ends 2-2, another draw at Bloomfield Road, and yet to get that elusive win at home to push us up the table. It was an amazing game nonetheless, and I look forward to reviewing it with Martin in a second. First of all, I'll introduce my guest helping us preview Burton. It's Ed. Welcome back, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. I've just seen Northampton drag a penalty wide against Mansfield. Literally, just as I've got this in the corner of my eyes, we're going and Hoskins missed a penalty. So that's a bit good because we need to chase Northampton. So that's really good a little bit.
Well, bit of luck you need, and then the good fortunes you're on at the moment, of course. But thanks for joining us again, mate. I really enjoyed the last preview, and I enjoyed the result, of course. But it does feel September, wasn't it? So yeah, it was a while ago. Good evening to my co-host Martin. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. It was lovely to see you again, Tom, in person. Perhaps some people don't realise that you do live in Colchester, and I live 5 miles from the ground. So we've only ever met twice in the flesh, and it was nice to meet Kurt as well. Yeah. Finally, yeah, it was good. It was good. Pity we didn't quite sneak the win, but it was an entertaining game, wasn't it? And it was nice in the Armfield Club as well before and afterwards. So it was all around. It was a good. I enjoyed last Saturday a lot. It was good.
Yeah, it was an enjoyable game. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of it all, I suppose. And in context, a 2-2 draw of Charlton and the result and the way we played was obviously excellent. But, you know, we just needed to get that win. But we'll come on to that in a second. We move on to away days tomorrow. And our fortunes lie very good away from home. And Burton's recent run of forms obviously sets up for a really good clash tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to it. Ed, I don't know if you are in for good fortunes in the last 5 games, but you know, being back at home, it should be an interesting clash.
We kind of did our own little preview for our own show with this, and we're putting in the bracket of what we had with Rotherham a couple of weeks back, coming against yourselves, who are you haven't lost less in 2025, and they hadn't lost in 2025 before they came to us and got beaten 4-2. So we're feeling a bit more confident, understandably, with the form we're in, and seeing how this goes. And I was stunned to find out just before we start recording that you haven't won at home since you beat us back in September. That's quite a stat to find out. Yeah, absolutely. It's a painful one for Blackpool fans' sake. I think there's 6 draws in a row at home now. So it's been somewhat entertaining. With draws against Huddersfield and the Charlton game, but you know, draws against Northampton and Stevenage on the other hand wasn't as easy to watch. So and Shrewsbury, of course. So we've scuppered our chances of being in a solid playoff form just at home, which is the opposite to last year. But we'll talk about our game a little bit more now. Martin's going to kick things off.
Yeah, Ed, so a little bit like us, you've had it's been an odd season because it's never easy when you change your manager. And if when I looked at the table a couple of months back, I was already writing off certain teams, and to be fair, you were one of them. I thought you'd gone along with Shrewsbury. I thought, well, that's them gone. And then Mr. Bowyer turns up, who obviously we know very well. But just if you can, up to this point, sum up the season so far and just give us a flavour of it.
It's hard to be brief. In the shortest way, it's not what we wanted. The summer feels like so long ago now. The buzz from June, where we were making so many signings under brand new ownership, and the natural buzz that comes with that, because you're looking at a brand new team, a brand new regime, essentially, in the football club, and the hopes that can come with that. And it took too long to get the first win. The first month was actually not too bad. There was only an open day defeat in there, and then things were staying largely competitive in games, playing some nice football, but always this sense that we were looking good but not getting the results. And that was a fine feeling up to when you're in August, September time. If you're still doing it in October, people start to go, right, something's not wrong here, something needs to change. And the killer for Mark Robinson, I think, was a 7-game losing run, which ended at home to Wycombe. Wycombe were not yet at the top of the table. People hadn't fully realised how good they are, but they came to us 1-3-2, a game where we twice clawed it back level and then threw it away because of the defence at the other end that was messing up everything done by the attacking side. And that was it for Mark Robinson. So you naturally, as you do, when you change your manager, you get a little bit of hope that something good might be coming in that can transform things. It takes 2 months to get the guy in. I don't know if I've ever seen an interim period as long as that. Certainly not in English, certainly not in my experience, if that is the case. And there's all kinds of names thrown around. You're never sure who it is. There's rumours that we're into this guy, and then they turn away because of contract deals or wage demands or whatever it is. But eventually we get to just before the Christmas period, Gary Bowyer comes in, and we look at that and think, right, let's have this now. Let's have a good Christmas period, which we normally do have. We normally do quite well over Christmas, which is where Burton can come into their own. We pick up 2 points for a possible 15 over Christmas. And so you can do the start of January where you beat them 1-0 home late on by Northampton, who are the one teams you're trying to chase down. Everything feels really bad. We're 11 adrift, 11th of safety, and we basically just kind of know how this ends. And you look at Bowyer and think the challenge of trying to get people in January when they really know what's about to happen. It's admirable, really, how he's managed to get in the players that he has and to get the agreements on either loan deals or even short-term contracts. The last 3 weeks have just been so brilliant and just so timely, just to really raise the mood when we just felt like everything was done. There's a couple, we look at it, I think we're unbeaten in 5. People say it's 1 defeat in 8. I would say within those are a couple of results we're quite disappointed about. Ones where we've had leads and threw them away. Peterborough at home on New Year's Day particularly comes to mind. We're 2-0 up after about half an hour and ultimately lose it. End up with a draw with that. I'm quite fortunate to take a point. But within the most recent games, 3 great wins away to Wigan, at home to Rotherham, and at home to Reading. It's taken from being, we were 11 adrift before that winning run, and we're now 5 now, but it was 3 at that point. So within touch and distance of getting out of it. And the belief is back, and it's just pleasing that we can go into these last few months, these last 18 games, and kind of think we could still pull this off, because even 3 weeks ago, it did not feel possible at all.
Yeah. I remember watching a preview of the season, I think, on Sky Sports with I think he was the owner. Correct me if I'm wrong, or the CEO, whoever it was, but gave a really impressive interview and was really kind of giving this impression that Burton had been revolutionised as a club, and the approach was going to be very different and a very modern sort of forward-thinking approach to it. And is that, even despite the fact that Mark Robinson got off to a bad start, is that how the fans see you guys at the moment in terms of the way the infrastructure is?
It's been a really steep learning curve for NFG, the Nordic Football Group that have come in. Yeah. I fully maintain what they're doing is the right way, because we just got old-fashioned as a football club, and the edge we used to have as a side where we just did things smarter than everyone else had gone. Now you're in a league with teams that have much bigger budgets, and they're not stupid with the transfers, so you just get left behind. And we'd gone from being a side that could aspire towards the championship and that kind of level to just kind of making up the numbers in this league and generally looking over our shoulder at the relegation zone. And the hope was this new ownership coming in, who do have a bit of financial backing to them, would be able to get things right. And the strategy early on was typical of what you would expect from modern football clubs, really. It was a data-driven approach, bringing in a lot of signings from around. When we're able to look back on now with hindsight, not enough of them worked. Too many of them very new to League One level. Some of them have hit, quite a lot coming in from the league below or from other leagues around Europe, and some even around other parts of the world. Not enough of them in the first half of that season have looked the required level to be part of a competitive, at the minimum, League One outfit. And that's been reflected in the January window, where a larger number of those have been let go by Bowyer and people brought in instead. And so we had a summer recruitment with a director of football in charge of it all. Bowyer's been in charge of this January one, and you can notice the difference already.
Yeah, he knows the league very well, of course, and is very well, he's well versed in football in general. Has obviously been around a long time and had many jobs in it. Will know what a League One footballer brings in terms of success, and in your case, success obviously looks like this recovery and getting you out of that relegation zone. And fingers crossed after Saturday, you obviously continue to do that. We've seen a couple of comments in the chat saying, "How's the Burton fans taken to Bowyer?" And as you just put up on the screen, Blackpool fans have always had a massive respect for Gary Bowyer. So let's talk about that man then. A man ultimately that was manager for Blackpool under previous ownership. We got the privilege to speak to Gary for quite a long period of time on the podcast previously, and he spoke about how he unified the players in difficult circumstances and just focused on the task in hand. And as Big Dog Walker's already said, and me and Martin have already alluded to, he was ridiculously articulate and just down to earth, and he's such a all-round fantastic guy, and he's, in my opinion, a perfect man to be at League One level. Just talk to us about what he's brought into the club, obviously along with transfers and his own sort of stamp on that. What has he brought into Burton, and obviously one defeat in 8 and 3 wins out of the last 5 sees you third in the league form at the moment, and ultimately looking up rather than down.
Yeah, even in the 6-7 weeks we've had, I echo some of those things you say. You can definitely see that in the way he is as a manager. When he came in just before, I think, the 21st of December, I was very hesitant about it for a couple of reasons. One, our track record with managers, basically since Nigel Clough has left, has not been good. We've had short-term successes at best. It's been the problem of finding someone to fill that void left by Clough, a guy who had massive influence in all aspects of the club. And we've been able to find guys who can at best kind of save seasons, and then you come into next year and this tactics go stale and they let go and they barely last a year. So I'm hesitant on that. I also wasn't quite sure where on the spectrum of Bowyer love we'd end up, because I think when you look at Bowyer, you've got a kind of spectrum of love to hate, where there's ones like yourselves and maybe say Blackburn and Dundee who really like Bowyer, really appreciate the work done. And then there's Bradford at the other end, where he's just not respected and liked, and people just don't really see what the point of him was or rate him that highly. So I wasn't sure where on that we were going to end, bearing in mind the situation we were in, which I don't think he's really had as a job before. My experience of Bowyer is that he's had clubs aspiring to promotion, not necessarily coming in rock bottom of the league, trying to desperately save themselves. So that was the intrigue that came with that. I'm delighted to say that about 6 weeks in, we really, really like him. We have really, really warmed to him quick. Everything you've said there is so right. He's incredibly articulate. I love his calm demeanour. No matter the result, win, loss, draw, just the natural selves. Doesn't let the emotion get the better of him. Doesn't start making outrageous statements like some other managers previously did. And he just, at the risk of going a bit ahead of myself, we kind of feel like he's what we've been missing with Clough. It kind of feels like that first proper gaffer that's in the building, because this is a guy who's been at a higher level than what we've been at previously. All the managers we've had up to now, up since Clough, Burton's kind of been the highest level they've been at in terms of their jobs. So Bowyer has got that experience at much higher levels, promotion specialist for a lot of the time. Really admire the way that he's come in, stamped his authority on the team, impacted the squad already, willing to make those changes and get rid of people who were starters at the beginning of the season, replace them with others. We ultimately looked at it and said, you're going to get us on board with results, and he's delivered that, and we've got ourselves back into the mix, which is fantastic. And I feel at the minute, as long as we stay competitive, if we do ultimately fall short and miss out, I'd very happily have him leave us into League 2 next year with the hope of going back straight back up.
I firmly believe with the squad you've got and what he's brought in, that I think you'll chip away at that points total, and we'll come to realise tomorrow that it's not like previous visits or when we played you before, that this will be an easy game. You're going to be a much different sort of kettle of fish. So, like I said, he knows the league and he knows how to win games or not lose them.
We've got a lot of appreciation, Tom, for not just the wins but the manner of the wins, because Burton have got a sufficient number of wins over the last 5 years to keep themselves up, but so many of them are super ugly wins where you are spending large chunks of the game defending, sat in your own box. If you get the lead, you're basically deep for the rest of the game trying to hang in there. He has not been like that, particularly with these 2 home wins we've had over Reading and Rotherham. We get one and we try to get more. It's the attacking impetus and that forward play we're looking for. It's not pretty intricate football, but we as fans aren't interested in that. It's just a matter of get it forwards. Let's have some attacking play. High wing backs in this. We'll get onto the system, but like we are playing with high wing backs, which we've always wanted to have. There's a balance to the team. There's threat down either side, so indeed through the middle. Strikers in form. It just feels like a proper football team again, and we haven't had one of those for about 5 years, and that's what's really pleasing people most, I think.
And just scoring goals, of course.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the last 5 then. The game that I had my eye on, sort of watching it alongside sort of Blackpool's game, was the Reading game. You've had great wins against Rotherham, of course, a team on their day who can beat anyone, but obviously ultimately can crumble as well. But, you've got those victories. It's a game where you thought you were going to draw after being 2-0 up, and then you went on the other end of the pitch and got another goal. Never say die attitude. And like you say, it's the manner of those wins, because in previous years you probably would have gone to lose that game against Reading. But ultimately you won. So just talk to us about the last 5, which have brought you ultimately closer to survival, and why they've been so good.
Yeah, it's interesting because the last 5 includes Crawley Town away, which would have been on the 18th of January. And that was a low point, we felt at the time, because of where we were, going to a side who was also in the bottom 6. Realistically looking, this is a 6-pointer must-win game, and we have a lead, end up drawing 1-1, and quite frankly, it's a game we probably should have lost because Crawley were the much better side with a lot more of the threats. So we're coming out of that game thinking 11 points adrift. The minimum we ask really is just try and delay this relegation as long as you can. And it's then followed by 3 consecutive wins, which completely transforms the look of the bottom 4 and gets us back into the pack. Wigan win, again, coming from behind. I think we were about 90 seconds. Wigan had the lead before we got back level. It was an instant impact from Jon-Dadi Budvarsson, one of the new signings. Dodgson really catching the eye as well. Great win. We haven't won away at Wigan, I think, since 2016, so that was pretty special. Nice to get that victory. We brought 42 fans to that game. So few fans, they actually closed the away stand. That's how few we brought. We just really, they were all in this little block just on the side of the west stand where the main fans are, but they absolutely loved that occasion. Really good for them to see. Rotherham's one of the best Burton displays we've had at home for years. Generally, really good attacking display. We do not often have a 3-goal lead in games. We were 4-1 up at one point in that game, which we do not normally have. So that was lovely to see. And again, behind early and quite quickly turning it back around and getting ahead with a quick fire double at the end of the first half. So that was nice. Reading's probably my favourite of the 3 wins, just because of how that game felt like it was petering out, as you say, Tom. First half was brilliant, 2-0 up. They had a lapse of not even 5 minutes, about 3 minutes, and Reading were back level. And at that point, past Burton crumbles and probably loses again, or the best they get is a draw, and they're spending a lot of that game quite under the cosh by Reading and still able to grab a stoppage time winner, which is really testament to the way Bowyer has got them playing, got that belief into the team. The game last time out, Barnsley last weekend, pair of wasteful teams, truthfully. Classic 12:30 kickoff where everyone's a bit drab, not really at full pelt because they're not getting a standard 3 p.m. slot. So Barnsley had more of the chances, but Burton's defence dealt with them. We won the ball quite high up on a couple of occasions. We're just going to get that final ball right. So decent draw with Barnsley, though. We normally go and lose 2-0 there, so we'll take that result the same. 5-game unbeaten run, albeit I still think Crawley's at the time felt quite a negative result, but we're feeling more positive, and I'm still not overly concerned about the other results of teams yet because there's still too much of the season left to go. But the aim's going to be to try and make it 6 unbeaten this weekend to get yourselves.
That will be the aim. Moving on.
I think as I alluded to before, Ed, I think there's some similarities in our seasons in so much that, you've made a managerial change and we've made one. But one of the things that Steve Bruce is doing at our place is having to basically he's trimmed the squad because we recruited for a certain system under Critchley in the summer. And obviously he went after 2 games and a lot of those players are just surplus to requirements. And it seems that you alluded to it as well, that Bowyer had to do some surgery. How impressed have you been with the signings? And obviously Bodvarsson's a bit of a standout because he if you put the ball in the box, he can do some damage. And he's this time last season I think he was in and out the Bolton team. I'm sure he played against us when we beat them. But how impressed have you been with the business and who are the standouts from the guys you've managed to get in the window?
Well, we brought in 6 at the end of this window. The first 3 through the door have hit the ground running like I don't think I've seen a new Burton signing have for ages. So just 3 new signings that they'll just completely transform the team with 8 other regulars around them. So Owen Dodgson, who he's brought in a left wing back, was previously at Barnsley, previously at Dundee, he's on loan from Burnley. He's just everything we needed from a left wing back. We've had a problem with left back for ages, just having no one dependable who's either a good attacking source or a good defensive presence. He's lovely in this team, just playing in this 3-5-2 shape we have. He's given that license to push up left-hand side. His low-driven deliveries are a cheat code in some of the home games. Like, people are queuing up to get on the end of them. He was really impactful in all 3 of the victories that we've had. Put himself on set pieces, so he put some in-swing and left-foot deliveries in. He's a really handy asset to have. Formed a really good partnership with another new arrival, JJ McKinnon, who's in on loan from Lincoln City. Yep. Really good driving presence from midfield, almost essentially like a third striker at times with those late runs into the box, and adds a bit of height into midfield because we've got quite small technical players before now. He brings a bit more height and physicality into there. Jon-Dadi Budvarsson, as you've gone to, 4 goals in his first 3 starts. I couldn't tell you last Burton striker who did that. I really could not tell you. He's absolutely on fire at the moment, even if he hadn't scored the last weekend. Partnered by Roman Burrell, who's just won League One Player of the Month with 5 goals in January. So we've got 2 informed strikers. We don't normally have 1. It's quite nice to have as a starting front line at the moment.
You're scoring a lot of goals, aren't you? Like, say,
it's nice to they've had a fantastic end. They've had a fantastic end in January, those 2. Burrell. But they're both workhorse strikers, which makes them great to this battling team. The difference is Burrell's got a really good turn of pace, so he'll stretch the play in behind or close down a lot quicker. So extremely handy asset to have. The new guys also in. James Jones adds another midfield option into there. We've had a little cameo of him. Fabio Tavares, who you mentioned, Tom. had a really good chance at Barnsley, got slipped through by Budvarsson, and keeper just saved it with his legs. He was trying to slip it through him and stick it into the net. So we'll see what's to come with him from Coventry. And then bringing in Kyron Lofthouse on deadline day from Barnsley just provides cover across the defensive areas. So Bowyer, I think, is still a little bit down that he hasn't got everyone he wanted. He had a couple of deals fall through on deadline day. So we're not the best with depth in midfielders, forward areas as much as we'd like. But the 11 looks nice. And I'd say that's a complimentary thing to have, because often we're complaining about the state of the 11. So we're quite pleased with the transfers, and recognising at the same time that we have let quite a lot of starters from last season go that just don't at the level. So Billy Bones off to Reading, Danilo Orsi to MK Dons, Ben Whitfield to Barrow. That was a starting front line. Elliot Watt was the captain for the first start of the season. He's now up in Scotland with St Johnstone. And I don't think anyone's really too down on those decisions, because they've just not hit to the level we need them to.
Who would have thought that Orsi would have gone to MK Dons?
It's the only manager that works for him, apparently, Scott Lindsay.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Absolutely.
Having said that, Orsi did actually get goals, I should say, actually. He did score some in the first half of the season.
He scored, what, 6, was it?
He scored 6, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I liked the signing when you got him, if I'm honest, and I was surprised that he left. So it was because Crawley lost a lot of their, promotion squad, didn't they? And I was just like, what's going on? But they had contract clauses, and, the owner said he'll never make that mistake again. So very, very interesting. And again, I thought it was a really shrewd signing at the time. And despite 6 goals, which is pretty decent.
We just don't do well with number 9s, Tom. That's the problem. If they got a 9 on the back, we just don't get goals. We just don't do it. It was the same as Stockton last year. Something about it. Orsi's a very system-specific player. If you're playing a possession side where he's basically on the end of everything in the box, that's fine. In this team where you've got to be a workhorse and run off the ball, that's just not his game. There's not a spot for him in this team, really. There's other people that would play ahead of him.
Victor Walker's asked, who's their best player so far this season?
Because of the whole of the season, without these new guys are probably going to be in the running with the way they're playing at the minute. But I'm going to have to go to the heart of the fence. I think our player of the season candidate at the minute is Ryan Sweeney in the very heart of the back line. You probably remember he got sent off in the cup game right at the start of the season, which really killed our chances of actually progressing in that. You guys obviously ran away with it, but he's just a proper brutish centre-back. Real big commanding presence, 6'3", 6'4", big presence. Seems to get himself in front of everything, just in the heart of defence, putting in blocks, putting in clearances. Grabbed himself his first goal in the Rotherham win, so he'll be the target of deep set pieces if we can get those right. Lovely presence to have in there. Max Crocombe, the other one to mention, the goalkeeper. Just keeps saving us again. New Zealand international. He was the reason we got that 0-0 draw with Barnsley. I think he saved all 10 shots that were at him. So if they're 2 on form, we've got a chance in the defence, and the unit around them is really benefiting from having those 2 in the heart of it.
Awesome, thank you. We've already spoken about it quite a lot. You've alluded to the 3-5-2 system, which obviously is quite adaptable in both defence and on the attack. We spoke wing-backs being important in recent weeks, but just talk to us overall about the system and what we're looking out for tomorrow when you're on the attack and obviously ultimately in defence as well. Yeah,
it's part of the reason the players that were let go have been moved on loan, because they just don't fit into this. So we play a 3-5-2. I call it 3-5-2 because the wing-backs get forwards. If they didn't, I'll call it 5-3-2 because they'd just be sat. Yeah. That's part of the problem we've had before. We played back 5 systems before, but we don't play with proper wing-backs, so they're just sat by the centre-backs all game and they're not having any attacking impetus, which in this kind of system, you need them for your width, and that's the difference. So Dodgson on the left-hand side is that. Adoka Gowan-Malithe on the right-hand side is a phenomenal athlete. Really, really good. He's one of the summer successes from the summer visits we've done. He's actually really proved his worth. So he provides that right-sided threat, Dodgson down the left-hand side with Terence Van Kooten behind, Gowan-Malithe and Jack Armour behind, Dodgson to that support behind. The midfield is just pure energy. That's the reason Watt got taken out, because Watt has technical ability but just doesn't run that much. So now Keg Schalk, JJ McGinn and Charlie Webster, James Jones the alternative. You've got people that will just run for the full 90 minutes there, cover all the ground in the centre of the park and link up with the fullbacks out wide. And then 2 informed strikers at the minute. It would be said that they're definitely better and more confident than the backups at the minute in Tavo. I would say they will probably start, and when we are probably going to not have as much threat when one of them comes off, which inevitably will happen because you can make 5 subs now, so they'll just give them 60, 70 minutes a game time and go from there.
Nice.
So let's talk about the... Oh, sorry, Tom, just bear with me a second. There we go. Sorry, technical problem. We can't edit it out, it's live. So just talking in generally about the squad in terms of key players, and not signings that have just joined, but who else can we look out for? Who else would be important for you that you definitely see a long-term future for, that you want to keep hold of?
Well, Bud Varston's one of them. We signed him on a 6-month deal. Part of the reason he came in because of where we were at the time. He just said, right, just do what you can for us now. And he's already made a telling impact already with the goals he's provided. So we'll be very keen to offer him a new deal in the summer and go from there. Dodger keeps playing the way we have. It might well ask Burnley how much he wants, because I don't know if his future's at Burnley there or not. I think he's had a number of loan spells away now, so see what happens with that. McKinnon will go back to Lincoln. We just accept that. It's just giving him game time away from the Imps, which he's not getting there. In terms of ones to watch, I've already touched on him. Godwin Malithe down the right-hand side, incredible athlete. Could play right centre-back, right wing, right back, right wing back, wherever you want. Really good blend of technical and physical qualities. Really handy asset to have. We really are keen on our number 8, Charlie Webster, who's been brought in from Chelsea at the start of the season. Taken a little while to get going because he was injured right at the start, but he's got this lovely all-round game to him. He'll carry the ball forwards through midfield, especially because of Keik Schalk now, who just holds the base of midfield behind him. It allows him to essentially be a right-sided version of JJ McKinnon and just provide that bit of attacking threat from central areas, working out wide to wing-backs or make late runs into the box or have some shots from range. So across the whole team, across the whole start 11, really, I'd say that there's no one we really look at and think is a liability in this team, which is really handy because we normally have at least one that we say don't attack that side.
That's good. Do you think there's much of a budget as well for, if you stay up? Do you think you'd be competitive next season, or do you with, and again, obviously Gary's made a massive difference, but next season, if you providing you survive, or even in both scenarios in League Two, what do you think the budget would be like? Would you be competitive, and would it be better than it's been in League One? Do you think the owner might have learnt from maybe some recruitment mistakes you've made, and you'd made sure that you wouldn't be down there again next season?
I would very much expect that Burton's budget, regardless of what league it is next year, is bigger than what we normally have, what we used to have under Ben Robinson, just because there's more financial backing now with this new ownership. So I would think we'd be one of the biggest in League Two and one of the promotion hopefuls. In League One, certainly wouldn't be the smallest of fry in that league compared to some others. But I'm wary at the same time we've had a lot of false dawns when it comes to kind of kicking on after surviving, because we've had 5 straight years now basically of being bad for one half of the season and good for the next, and we never seem to actually get out of that rut of keeping ourselves away from the bottom 8. So like even having a season like yourselves or like Lincoln at the minute would just be lovely next season if we were to survive. Good.
So Bruce plays a 4-4-2. It's very reliant on both wings, and we haven't traditionally had a lot of wingers at the club. Obviously, the signing of Tom Bloxham helped the up front situation when Joseph went. So we're obviously playing Hamilton and Apter with Bloxham sort of overlapping with Apter. The centre mid's a bit of a problem for us. So like you, when you say there's not much strength in depth, we're kind of the same. So between Sonny Carey, Albie Morgan and Lee Evans, that's basically it. We've got Ryan Finnegan and Onoma. They're not really reliable sort of candidates to come in and make an impact. So we were really frustrated not to do some business on deadline day with the likes of Mox and go to Stockport, etc. But as a 4-4-2 system, with speedy wingers and obviously Bloxham and Fletcher causing quite a lot of havoc up front, where would you say the opportunities lie for Blackpool, and where can we do damage?
Well, we're all going to sweat when Rob Apter gets on the ball for obvious reasons. We all remember that goal. Unfortunately,
I more remember the defence. I said it was a good goal, but also like showing him constantly on his left.
We are literally just playing right to his strengths here, just letting him go straight through the middle, as always. Yeah, Apter will be the one. Hamilton, that turn of pace could be a problem. What we seem to be good at also seems to be weak at. So we get a lot of crossing opportunities in from both sides, but it also feels like we can be vulnerable to that. So if you can get that low cross past Sweeney for instance, to the left centre back Jack Armour, who's not massive in build, he's kind of like a mobile outside centre back who can play wing back. So his best thing is that he can overlap Dodgson winning possession and be a different crossing option to the left hand side. And there is that decent level of suitability for him, but I'm not sure how he'd be best against Bloxham, for instance. I think that'd be a mismatch in the air. I don't know if I've really seen the best of Bloxham aerially yet. We just think about he's a bit deceptively mobile for a guy of his height, but that'd be something to target. Mobile. Yeah. it's Rob Apter for us. We're terrified of him just with how he's been these 2 games this season. And then, the midfield will be interesting because you're going to play a 2, obviously, and we'll have a 3rd man in there. So can we overload you in there or not? Or can you lot boss it around with Morgan and maybe Lee Evans in there? We'll have to see.
We saw against Exeter, which we thought was an impressive win at the time, but I just think they're in banging trouble. But we've seen with a lot of teams, even if they play a free, that when we get the ball out wide early or quick, that we just rely on playing the ball from there rather than through the centre. So it will be interesting to see how we battle in that midfield and how we can get that ball wide when you're playing sort of that 3 or 5 in the system, because you've exposed yourself quite attacking wise. Do you see us getting in behind there, or do you see the athletes kind of getting back and blocking those sort of chances?
That's where the intrigue comes, because I think it has the potential to quite an open game, this, because I don't think
I was thinking
it's Bowyer's incentive to be cautious at home, especially, and the crowd would not let him be cautious at home. Being away is a little bit different. We'd maybe understand that, but we've been complaining for years that we've stopped making the Pirelli a fortress, that we're playing like an underdog in too many home games in league matches. So the last couple of wins against Rotherham and Reading have been really pleasing, because we've actually looked like the team. We're at home. We're going to make this our place. You're going to play on our terms, and we're going to take the game at you. So there's the potential of going quite back and forth over these 90 minutes on Saturday, which would be fun for a neutral, but you'll be wondering how often it breaks down as the ball gets into sort of around the edge of the box, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I ask you the last question, Big Dog Walker has asked, as an opposition fan, how do you see Blackpool and Steve Bruce this season? I know you're very knowledgeable when it comes to League One anyway, but how have you seen Blackpool so far under Bruce?
I guess Bruce is a little bit like Bowyer, where I kind of looked at him and thought, do I still have the buzz for him? And maybe a little bit like when Holloway went to Swindon, for instance. I don't know. You think of Bruce and the long, long career he's had, and you're wondering where his stock's at. And I quite like the little impact he made. I think Blackpool's unbeaten run has kind of crept up on me. Certainly your home record has crept up on me. I thought it was stronger than it is in terms of wins recently. But I don't know. Now, I was comparing this to the Rotherham game, but the fact was we were confident because Rotherham weren't great at home, or weren't that great away, whereas the difference seems to be with yourselves, you're actually stronger away than you are at home at the minute. So it's got the potential to be a very rewarding victory to were to pick this up. Even if we have beaten sides higher up in the table than you currently are, you present that good level of threat, and it's the kind of game we're going to have to win if we're going to pull this off. We're sat on 25 points. We probably might need to double that before the season's done, get another 7-8 wins worth of games. So winning these, as we're talking about, winning these home ones and drawing as many ways as we can is the reason we're going to pull into this. So got to carry the confidence of where we're at the minute and go from there, really.
Absolutely. Finally, do you have any questions for us?
Any chance of a roll back to injury?
Or if we do, then we could play Jake Peasley up front.
I would be quite keen to know what the situation with the centre backs is, because you seem to have a few options, and there seems to be a bit chop and change with the pair at the moment, playing alongside Husband and is it Othia who plays out right?
So Fire is right back. Husband's been playing left back, and Pennington was with Pennington was with Casey, who's been, in my opinion, the player of the season so far. Casey's, if he's not a championship next year, I'll be very surprised if summer's not turbulent in terms of bids coming in for him, because he's been outstanding this campaign and recently won a Player of the Month as well. So he's the stalwart of the back. Pennington was looking a lot better, and then Elkin Baggett comes on against Huddersfield in the 2-2 draw, which is the opposite to Charles.
He'd be someone I'm worried about because you've got a massive height with him.
Yeah, so Elkin, he's come in, and I was a bit apprehensive, if I'm being honest. One, because he was injured for a while, and he wasn't great against Huddersfield. And then he's come in, and honestly, the Charlton game, despite us conceding 2 goals, which had nothing to do with him really, I would say nothing to do with Casey, but he unfortunately scored an own goal by deflection against them as well. But Elkin Baggett and him, if I'm being honest, look an absolute cheat code at the back. Like Elkin's ability to read the game, even when he was 2-on-1 in the first half against Charlton, he waited and literally randomly just slid as he passed the ball to cut out the pass. But I thought it was a guaranteed goal. It was 2-on-1, and his big frame obviously just put him off a little bit, and he read the game superbly well. So those two at the back, in my opinion, are, despite you being in good form, they're the 4 that I would want in any team, if I'm being honest. They just look really good. I mean, a Fire is, Martin maybe can describe him, but his ability to not only be stronger than most players he's playing against, but his ability to get up that line or play a pass into midfield he's become on leaps and bounds because he was originally at centre back. And like you say, a bit of chop and change. He's now at right back over Jordan Gabriel because I would assume Bruce likes the defensive work better. So it will be interesting, those battles, Martin. I don't know if you have an opinion on it. Husband's been pretty much consistent since his injury and is our captain. So
what we're doing really, by hook or by crook, is we're effectively playing 4 centre-backs across the back 4. Because Husband can play there and Afire wants to play it back according to Bruce.
We're playing 4 defenders, aren't we? Like proper defenders.
We are, exactly, yeah.
It's a Steve Bruce team. I'm not surprised one bit by that.
Well, exactly. Defenders defend. And last season when we were playing wing backs, it just didn't work. But he's just gone for an old school 4-4-2. But the back line is big and it's powerful and it's very good at defending, that's what he needs. There's no faff. Too much faff sometimes, isn't there, with certain managers? But no, it's basics with those guys. But Afire is a different level. He'll play in the Championship regularly for certain, if not higher. He's been moved to right back, and he's just a unit that can carry the ball, looks a threat going forward, and he's just a really big lad, but mobile for his size. He's just one of those that he's a gem that won't be hanging around in League One next season. He'll be in the Championship on loan with a decent team, probably halfway up at least, I would have thought.
If you watch the goal against Exeter, you'll see what I mean about the strength. And he did it several times against Charlton, which didn't result in a goal, but he set blocks him off on the wing, who passed it across to CJ, who managed to put it wide from like 5 yards. So he's certainly sets up attacks, but obviously very good at muting them as well. So watch the goal against Exeter, and it gives you a good example of what his ability is at, because he shrugs off the striker like he's not there and sets up the first goal. So it's very good. Any other questions?
Are you likely to have someone who'll try and take place on the middle? Because that's how Reading got back level. Lewis wing at the base of midfield, not in that kind of space between the front line and the midfield, where we wouldn't go press him a lot. So we had that chance to dictate play and try and play some intricate passes. If there was someone like that, that could be a route maker. I realise Ollie Norburn used to have that role, but it's not really, he can't do that anymore because he's not there anymore. But it's the kind of thing he used to do, I think, in the Blackpool team I've seen previously.
If Evans plays, you'll know him from the home leg, of course.
Yeah.
He is that guy. But him and Morgan, they do work. They did work really well in previous away wins. I would prefer him over Sonny Carey. If Sonny Carey plays, he won't dictate play. And Morgan, if he's off his game, they both look poor. If Morgan's on his game, it'll be Morgan. If Evans plays, Morgan will do the dirty work, or Evans dictates the play. So I don't really know. Centre mid's our weakest spot now, and we didn't do any business on deadline day, so it infuriated a lot of fans. But Bruce said he was happy, so I don't know if it's him playing to the tune of Sadler, or he generally is happy with his team and thinks he can get the best out of them. So it'll be interesting. But if Evans starts, it'll be him. If Morgan's on his game, it'll be him. But no one natural like Lewis Wing's ability.
Okay.
Any more?
Are you happy with the season you're having? I guess is the final question to me. Would we be happy if we just missed out on top 6? Best way I'll deal with that.
I'll let Mark
I feel like I know the answer to that,
but
I feel like I know the answer, but go on.
Well, like I said, we're having a weird season. Last season our away form was terrible, and we were very good at home and very efficient. And typical Blackpool, we've just gone the other way this season. If we had the 2 right, we'd be up in the top 6, top 4. I'm happy with it now because I believe in Steve Bruce and I do trust him. I wasn't, a bit like you, I wasn't sure when he first came in. I was a bit staggered that we'd even got him, and he'd been out of the game for 2 years. You always get a bit wet about that, but I'm happy with the progress we've made. He's solidified us. There's a few things that Blackpool fans are not happy with, and it isn't really the form on the pitch. It's more to do with, I think, we're not really sure where we're going with the ownership. Because obviously the owner has a few issues off the field that he needs to sort out, and there's been a lot of rumours about us being up for sale and things like that, and the communication from the club is poor, very poor right now. So we're happy with what Steve Bruce is trying to do, and really the owner's been very clever to get him in because he's such a well-known face in football that he's sort of unified the fans, and they believe in him even if they don't trust any other element of the club right now. That he is the mouthpiece. He's the only person from the club that we see, really. So I think we're happy with him, and I'd be happy again, him leading us into League One next season, having a proper crack at it with a decent transfer window under his belt. So I think the fans are happy with that element of things, but the bigger picture is a bit cloudy at the moment, really.
On the field, exactly the same. Proud of the team, proud of what he's doing with them and the way we set up and we fight for games. So, we've come back on the weekend against a very well organised side, and he's made some shrewd signings. We moaned about the window, but we brought in Ennis, who looked really good on Saturday. Not so good in the Championship with Stoke, but a good asset in my opinion.
We had him previously in COVID times, and I seem to remember he had a little impact in the trophy, and then went to Argyle and really kicked on from there.
Yeah, 14 or 15 goals, I think it is. Obviously, he bought in Bloxham. Whether we truly were looking at him, like he said before the Shrewsbury game, but he pulled every single one of our players' pants down on New Year's Day, and I think that maybe sparked the interest a bit more. He's bought in Bloxham, we bought in Silvera, who was at Middlesbrough and scored a few goals in the Championship. So he's done the basics right. I just wish he signed one more centre midfielder, because
it feels like the forward depth's there, but not so much the midfield.
Yeah, it's exactly that. With Josh Oliver can't move. I mean, very much like Jordan Rhodes in the middle of the park, and Ryan Finnegan's too weak for League One, if I'm honest. So it's one of those ones where we're probably one or two signings away from having a really competitive squad. And in the summer, 5 of our loans, obviously the ones that are making a big impact, Afire is one of them, of course. Baggett, Tyra, they're all sort of players which are making a big difference to the side. And if we lose all of them, then we're back to square one, and we need a big investment again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to call that the preview, mate. That's probably one of the longest previews we've done. But I really appreciate the insight you've given us, and talking fondly of Gary Poet. It's really good to see him sort of back in work.
I hope he gets a good reception. I'm sure he will.
He absolutely will. I mean, not many fans got to see him.
I'd love to ask actually about the end of that, if I can, because my understanding is it was one game into the following season, and I've never fully known the reason whether it actually ever came out why it happened.
I think it was just final straw with the Oystons. It had got beyond the joke. And I remember actually that Portsmouth game. I think we were at home, and it was a draw. And I seem to remember we were all part of the protest. We turned up for home games, protest, and then go home as the game kicked off outside. Right. And I remember that game, and I remember getting home, and then the next day gone, or that night he'd gone. I think he just got to the end of his tether with the Oystons. This is a man who worked under the Venkies. And then he goes and works.
He's done a lot, that man. He has.
It must be great to go to a football club if you're him. I know he's been at Dundee, and I mean Bradford. You said Bradford fans don't like him. That's because it's a bit of a basket case of a club.
It is down there, to be fair. Yeah.
And Salford's been a bit like that, but it's interesting that sort of crisis clubs like we were in Blackburn rate him really highly, and then he's maybe found just a normal environment to work at with you guys, hopefully. So I think you just had enough, like most managers.
Okay.
You can only cover for the owners so much.
I think it's to do with the transfers as well, wasn't it? I think he didn't get anything that he wanted to, and if he actually got some investment, then he would have done really well with Blackpool again. So I for one always wanted to see what he could do under good owners. So I wasn't adverse to him coming back after Critchley went, but a lot of fans don't like coming back Critchley again. Didn't really want Holloway again, so didn't want Appleton the first time, let alone the second time. So
and I've got to imagine, because I do remember watching it, that Luton time must be one of your favourite moments.
Yeah, brilliant.
Second leg, was it second leg at Kenilworth, or was it
in the last minute corner that
I remember watching that.
Well, we were watching from the telly, but it's the Wembley game was one of the most weirdest in history. Like when he had I think 800, 900 actual fans then, and they gave away a few thousand, I think it was. But obviously having the whole of the Wembley Stadium empty on our side was your true... I always say this, like one of the proudest moments as a Blackpool fan, because you've got to understand a playoff final at Wembley is probably the straw that a lot of fans would break under, obviously going to watch your team there. But the Blackpool fans held strong and showed Sky and the rest of the world that we were in it for the real reasons, and eventually it worked. So I think moments where Bowyer leaves and stuff just added to the noise that Blackpool fans make, because he was clearly a very genuine bloke. So
excellent.
Sweet. Well, thanks, Ed. Good luck for the rest of the season after tomorrow, but I'm sure I'll catch up with you about the game, and it'll be great to see two good sides go at it, both in good form, and it should make for a really good game.
Yeah, let's hope for a gold fest, and let's hope I can be back with yourselves next year.
Yeah, well, hopefully, we'll certainly. If we need to win tomorrow if we're going to continue to kick on. But the job will become more and more harder if we keep drawing games, of course. But I think we're 2-13 unbeaten now, so we just need to win at home, and we'd be absolutely spot on. But yeah, good luck tomorrow, and we'll look forward to catching up soon.
Great.
Take care, mate. Martin, that was one of the longest previews we have done, but I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of talking to Ed there.
He knows his stuff. He knows the league very well, doesn't he? He has to for what he does, but he's very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's part of the D2D3 podcast as well all those years ago. So a superb podcast at a lower league level as well. But I was going to spend some time talking about the Charlton game. So let's just do 5-10 minutes if we can on that. To sum up the game overall, it was pretty decent. First half was one where we created a fair few chances, of course. And what did you make of the overall game when it comes to sort of the first half and second half and the way it all panned out?
Yeah, the first 20-25 minutes was not the best, was it? But it certainly got better. Yeah. I just, it's such a Blackpool thing to concede 2 quick goals in consecutive games, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It was car crash stuff, wasn't it? Just watching it.
It was. When it comes to the first half, I did think, just to surmise for the listeners, I apologise for not doing an in-depth review, but that preview ran over, so we won't bore you too much. But to surmise in the first half, I think we did a really good job. You've got to understand that I think it was something like, where was it? In the first half, yeah, we had 7 shots, only 1 on target, which was CJ's effort, which the keeper blocked. But we had Elkin Baggett's header, we had the cross across the goal from Bloxham after some really good work from the fire, which he skewed over. I think it might have got a little touch off the player. I'm not sure. If not, it was just a horrific shot. We had a few good chances in the ball and around the area. Free kick, which was dinked in right at the back post, which just needed a slight touch for it to go in. I think you're in the south, aren't you? So you're just in that a bit closer.
Yeah. And
some really good moments in defence as well. They didn't have a shot on target due to Elkin Baggett's superb defending them in that first half when they were 2-on-1. So we had the foundations of a really good first half. This is probably the true example of a game where you don't take your opportunities in that first half, because I generally think if we scored the first, we would have gone on to win maybe 2 or 3-0. Because we didn't score that first goal, we suffered the consequences early in the first half. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, completely. Yeah. As I say, the whole game was a slow start, but we definitely made the better of it. And they just looked like a fairly kind of compact, decent but average team, really. They didn't look like they were going to pull up any trees. They didn't particularly look very exciting. They had a good vocal backing, though. I will say it for them. They were pretty noisy because they're quite next to where I stand. But generally, it was. It's just another example that we're not ruthless enough. We're not ruthless enough. A really good side on top of its game puts them to the sword, gets 2-0 up, and says, "Right, what have you got?" And if we don't score, you just know we're vulnerable. Even though we're decent defensively, we are, especially at home, we're vulnerable. If we don't take those chances, it seems to all stop for a bit, and it gives them a chance to get on top.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say about Charlton, they were a different calibre of a team versus what we've played at home more recently, and their system was really easy to see. Their block in midfield did a really good job over Carey and Morgan, and they were still impacted by the wings. I think Bloxham had a very good first half, probably not at his true best self, but I had a lot of comments around Fletcher and him trying to, not doing much, but I'll caveat that because they were feeding off scraps. They weren't getting the ball into them very well from the centre. The defenders were kind of doing their jobs, and when they had the ball, they were making stuff work. I still think there's an over-reliance on getting the ball straight to Apter, if I'm being truthful. That was evident in the first half a lot of the time, and every time he went on the outside Apter, he won a corner or did something with it. Every time he drifted inside, it was pretty much a moot point at that point. So I think he learned in the second half to go on the outside a lot more, and he started winning a few more corners. So we had a few opportunities, like Elkin Baggett's header was obviously fairly close, but it was a good first half. You probably have to admit that without us scoring. In the second half, it took until the 52nd minute where Tyra saves, another shot gets blocked, and eventually it falls into the back of the net. after a shot across goal and Godden sticks his foot out, and it's not really Tyra's fault. I think the defence could have dealt with it maybe the first or second time, but it was a rebound shot across goal. Then if Godden's not there, which he is because he's a very good striker at this level, that he does what a good striker does and pokes his foot out and the ball's in the back of the net and we go 1-0 down.
Yeah, exactly right. It was a bit of a mess all around, really, but again, just symptomatic of just not taking opportunities in the first half. And then I feel that maybe Charlton probably went in thinking they'd slightly got away with one, could easily been, at the end of the day, it's 0-0. That their manager probably gives them a team talk, works on a few things. Our confidence in front of goal, and also not won at home since September. If that was away from home and it was 0-0, you'd probably say, well, it's all right, our away record's great. We can go and create a couple on the break and maybe win this 2-0 or something. At home, our confidence is so low because it's amazing that we've not won at home since September that you just get that deja vu feeling. Even against Huddersfield, 2-0 up, and it didn't take long for that to be eradicated, and then the confidence just you don't know what's hit you for 5 or 10 minutes probably, and we were a little bit like that on Saturday. I thought that it was almost like a feeling of the inevitable that we get punished, and here we go again because we seem to have a problem playing at home for some reason at times.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that in the second half. I think when the first goal went in, we didn't react to kick off really well, and literally a minute later they were attacking down the left and shot across or cross across goal, and Casey's obviously deflected into him, and it was one of those moments where I didn't really feel. I mean, I was frustrated, obviously, 10-hour round trip, and you think you've come to watch another loss or a loss at home, and it was frustrating because we didn't seem to have anything about us during the game or start off well in the second half. And one thing I will say is that the second goal, which was quite lucky. One thing I will say is reacted fairly well to that goal, and I think if we go, where is it? After Casey's own goal, Apta had a shot. Then that's when Afire found himself in the box and slammed it against the keeper from close range, and the rebound didn't fall out to anybody, and they ended up clearing it for another corner. And Ike had the disallowed goal where he fouled them, then Bloxham hits a ferocious shot in the 67th minute, and if you saw it from where you sat, he hits that vicious strike from just outside the area towards the goalkeeper's right, and it swerves something rotten in the air. And to be fair to the keeper, he sticks both palms out, doesn't he, and makes a solid arm save. And, he does well to keep it out. And you kind of think at that point, like, when is the ball going to hit the back of the net? But you have to say the reaction from Blackpool and their players from the second goal, I think they could either sink or swim at that point. And I think they did well to switch them to a positive reaction.
Yeah, and that's what you hope going forward, gives them that confidence that this time they've come back from a 2-0 deficit and got back in it. And you know what? If that game had gone on for another 10 or 15 minutes, I'd have backed us to get a winner the way we were playing. And also you've got Ennis and Silvera who aren't, maybe they haven't got the home thing in their head because they're new, and Bloxham as well to a certain extent. So you've got a forward line up there of players that are just concentrating on trying to score and win. And obviously they were very effective. Silvera came on, did really well, and Ennis came on and did really well. And it's got to end eventually anyway. This run can't carry on at home, and we will beat someone. We don't have to batter somebody. We'll just win at some point. But the reaction was good, because at 2-0, it's never over, is it? Once you score with enough time, it does start to put the fear of God in defences, because you don't want to throw away a lead. I'm sure that Nathan Jones felt they should have won the game. Yet probably they should have done from 2-0. But overall, I think it would have been a bit unfair on us if we'd have lost it.
I found Nathan Jones' comments quite bizarre. He said we had more possession, more shots, etc., when none of it was actually true. We had more shots, more XG, more everything than Charlton. And he's right, at 2-0. He's probably really peeved that they didn't win the game, and it's more fault of 2 moments of excellence, in my opinion, and a relentless attitude from Blackpool from the 62nd to the 65th minute onwards, really, where we introduced Niall Ennis and Silvera. I think one thing I will say about Silvera is he looked much more impactful coming into that number 10 role. On the wing, if I'm honest, he looked lackluster, weak and out of ideas. But the moment he could come in and dictate play a little bit, he looked outstanding. And that's where the 4-4-2 for me, because now he's like, do you start him? Because on the wing he doesn't look great, but Hamilton was appalling. I think one of Hamilton's worst games in colours, in my personal opinion. Not to single him out because there was some poor performance on the day, but he's just, when he came on, he was much more agile and mobile and forward thinking when it comes to actually, attacking the goal. And when he drifted in, he was brilliant. And obviously on the 74th minute, the shot we had after Bloxham's shot was Silvera's goal. And from where I was sitting, it was drifting just wide of the post. And to my astonishment, something on the way where it took a deflection or the bounce, I think it was a slight deflection, it nicked it into the inside of the post. And we had rejuvenation, and the North was outrageously loud after the goal went in, and you kind of felt that second goal being pulled into the net. But first and foremost, Silvera's finish was exactly what we needed. Obviously, someone drifting in from the left and curling one into the corner.
Yeah. I was the same. I was a bit astonished to see it go in because I was sort of right behind it in the side. It's obviously hard to see it from 80 yards away, but it looked like it was going wide, and then it went in. And you see the North go up and some limbs, and it's good to get that sort of reaction going because we've been lacking it this season. In moments like that, there's a bit of belief. There's plenty of time to get back in the game, and I like Silvera. He may well be one of those players that is. We've tried it with Apter, haven't we? Playing him in that sort of pocket or that number 10. It isn't really his game, but it might be Silvera's. He looks like a sort of guy who can keep the ball and has got a good touch, and he might be that creative kind of Cam that we're looking for, but we don't really have.
We don't really play that in the fort. So that's what I mean. Hopefully, as I've started having a plan B, because evidently when he started drifting and having a bit of freedom, it did work because he was causing some chaos. Won a couple of free kicks just outside the area as well. Before we talk about Niall Ennis as an overall, let's talk about first and foremost Jake Beasley, who for his 10-15 minute cameo, I thought was generally one of his best performances for Blackpool. He looked like a striker. He ran the lines really well. He disrupted their defence. He won a few headers, won a few duels in the middle, but ultimately just kept busy. He alerted really well to the defence at the back. And as much as I'm buzzing for Ennis to get his debut goal, the strike from him was outrageous. A really, really good finish. It looked like it was, for all intents and purposes, flying into that top left-hand corner. Keeper does not move a single movement, and it looks like it's about to hit the bar and go in. What does happen is the ball flies out to a striker, and then you think any striker out of form would have lashed onto that and not finished it, but he takes the most beautiful touch, Ennis, and obviously slots it into the goal, and it gives us 5 to 10 minutes of hope that we were going to turn it all around. And I thought first and foremost, Beasley deserves a lot of praise for coming on, because I think he really did impact the game and obviously ultimately ended up with an assist. But Ennis's finish was cultured and cool. And if it was a different striker on his day, might not have done what he did by taking a touch.
I'm glad you mentioned Beasley because I think maybe we've seen why Rhodes has gone out the door and Beasley's still here. Because would Rhodes have, if he'd have come on, would he have been able to do that? I'm not sure.
Not running the lines like he did potentially.
No, and I think we've all pretty much every Blackpool fan has given Beasley a little bit of negativity, and it's not because it's a lack of effort. It's more of a case of we just don't think he's good enough. But the thing is, if you look back at his career over the past couple of years, he's scored in some big, pretty big games and had some decent moments. It's just that it's stringing them together. He's Bolton, Fleetwood. The other day, there's been a few where he's stepped up and done it, and maybe Bruce thinks, well, look, mate, you're not the sort of the long-term answer for me, and you're not going to be a starter. But if I need to bring somebody off the bench, I'd rather bring you than a 34-year-old Jordan Rhodes whose legs have gone. And he did do superbly well for it. And then, as you say, to have somebody, I mean, the thing is with Ennis is that obviously he scored for Stoke the other week in the FA Cup, didn't he? And that goal was a really good finish, so he's clearly got it in him. And as you say, he shows a bit of composure. He takes his time and finds the corner, and we're back in business. And I can't remember the last time Blackpool were able to bring on two forwards who impacted the game so quickly. 3 really, if you count Silvera. You know what I mean? They were great subs, weren't they? And they were subs that made a big difference immediately. So I was made up for Beasley because he's obviously got a little bit of something still to offer, and he's still here.
He's here for the rest of the season. Well, at least, of course, and he won't be starting anytime soon potentially. But when it comes to injuries, could he replace Fletcher and do a similar job to when Fletcher was just out of form? I think so. Absolutely, we've seen it in the past. And which has got to rely on Bloxham staying fit, I suppose, because it's our only hope up front to offer us that little something different alongside Ennis now as well. So it'll be interesting to see in recent weeks what he'll do, whether he'll start Bloxham instead of Apter, whether Apter will move to left, whether Bloxham will start left and Ennis will come up front. So we've got options now. Where we haven't got options is predominantly centre mid. But just before we talk about the last 5 minutes on the transfer window, obviously a pretty mental game. We can't go into too much sort of detail, but we finished the last attack with Sonny Kerry going through. As much as Morgan wasn't there anywhere near his best for this game, plays a delicious ball to his centre midfielder partner, goes in on goal. If it wasn't for the 90th minute, I think Kerry has a bit more pace to him to run through and maybe have a shot, but he kind of just runs ahead of the ball, doesn't he, and cuts back, which he does superbly well because the defender, falls on his arse, and you think you've either got to unleash a shot now, but he ends up getting tangled with the defender, and Bruce seems to think it's a penalty. I've watched it back 3 or 4 times now, and he kind of does touch the ball with his arm, but at the same time he's on the floor moving, and I don't think he goes to knock it out of his hand. I don't know. If it gets given, I can see why it has, and I can see also why it hasn't.
Yeah,
but the flip side, there is moments where instead of sort of protesting for the penalty, he could have looked up and just passed the ball across to Beasley or Bloxham. I might be being hypercritical, but if you have a look at the replay, there is an opportunity where Beasley's just to his right and Bloxham's to Beasley's right. So he could go to Beasley and knock it in, or at least have a shot. And he ends up sort of protesting, thinking he's going to get the penalty because he was adamant it was, but instead he didn't play to the whistle and maybe create another goal scoring opportunity. Yeah,
that's last minute desperation, isn't it, for you? That's the desperation of getting the win, and he probably thought it was a penalty. I could see if they'd have given it, you can't moan about it too much, but at the same time, I can understand why it hasn't. Like you say, it's very much a kind of 50-50 one, that, But yeah, I think if that had been 10 minutes early as well, Sonny Kerry might have had a bit more energy about him. But really, if we'll talk about it in a minute, it's another one that you wouldn't have said a month ago. You wouldn't have expected this after Christmas. You wouldn't have expected him to be playing in our midfield, really, would you? Maybe coming on, but not starting. Because I thought we'd have something else, but we didn't. One of those.
Yeah. I think, if you take this game, though, in isolation, I wasn't unhappy with a draw in context, but obviously
there are draws
at home.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Just finally then, before we talk about the window, let's talk about Ennis. He comes off the bench, and what for you did he do really well? Because he clearly impacted the game. He gave us a bit more direction up front, I believe, and a bit more energy, but also you could see his experience a little more by running the lines like he did and keeping the defenders busy. But from where you were sitting, what did he do well?
Well, I was at Blackburn versus Preston for my sins on Friday, which is a long story which you and I talked about, but anyway, it's a lovely way to spend your 50th birthday. Thank you so much. But I was talking to a few people there, and there was a couple of lads I was chatting to, and they were saying, "Oh, you signed Ennis?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said he's a really hard-working lad. He hasn't got an awful lot of quality at this level in terms of finishing, but he does run. I think Stoke fans have said the same thing, that some Stoke fans have been really harsh about it. The Blackburn fans have been a little bit nicer about him, but he's somebody who he'll run the channels, and he'll give 100%, and he'll upset defenses with his pace, but they didn't see his finishing power. Whereas a Plymouth fan will probably tell you that he's got everything because he scored some, a decent. Schumacher had him playing well when they went up a couple of years ago. So I think he just gave us pace, as you said, pace, energy, a directness. He reminds me a little bit of DJ Campbell, in so much that, what I mean? That sort
statement.
Of do that kind of thing. Obviously, he won't have the same legendary career that DJ had, but he's in that sort of mold, I think, where he's just like a bit of a pest, like a bit of. I mean, Joseph was a bit like that, but he had so much more stature. But he's somebody who'll close people down, and I think if he was started regularly, I think he'd get his. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him get 6, 7, 8 goals between now and the end of the season if he plays, because I think he can do it at this level. It's the step up.
As much as I don't want Fletcher to be dropped for any intents purposes, really, for him doing a bad job, I would like to see Ennis and Bloxham start, just to see that level of experience and that intelligence, to see how they can cause trouble. Because
Both with pace.
But I think he'll stay with Fletcher for now because he hasn't done much wrong. But
no.
Okay, the transfer window then, let's not get too emotive about deadline day because I think Amos kind of alluded to it. And I still thought we would do a bit of business, but it turns out it's just Jordan Rhodes going. But look, let's look at it as an overall then. We were very disappointed. I've already said that we haven't signed a centre midfielder to sort of cover bases. I think Victor Walker said every player Bruce has brought in, vast improvements to what we had previously in the squad. He's also got rid of players that don't want or fancy it. I think like the massive benefits, whether it's a benefit for Bruce, well, it's a benefit for Bruce and Sadler really. Rhodes has played his last game in Tangerine. I would assume he's not obviously going to be playing next season unless he's in the coaching form. He's already got a knock and not in the squad tonight for Mansfield.
Yeah.
Ironically, obviously Thompson's gone, which we all loved and we were all heartbroken about. Joseph's gone for a very good sum of money, which every credit, getting Ennis and blocks him in return for Joseph is very good business. Even though Ennis isn't ours, it's an opportunity to sign him at the end of the window. Potentially, unless he, does that well, that's, Stoke want him back. Zach Ashworth's gone to get some game time. And I think overall we've got rid of a lot of players that, are using up a lot of wages. And we've now got a squad which you think every single player has a role to play, I suppose. The only issue is if we got someone like Moxon in, then we would have probably had a much more well-rounded, a complete squad. We're just missing a couple of quality players for us to continually push, in my opinion. But we've got rid of a lot of wages, a lot of players that, previous managers signed and, didn't use or used and they weren't good enough. So in my opinion, what Bruce has done really well this window is got rid of players that he's never going to use and got us ready for the summer, where if he does get some form of transfer budget, maybe some of Joseph's that we haven't used really, and if he has got the opportunity to spend £1 million, £1.5 million on 4 or 5 players plus loans, then we're going to have a really good squad, providing we keep the nucleus of this one, which unfortunately is predominantly loans. But if you keep your Cases and stuff for the world, Evans, Bloxham's our player, keep that spine. And we'll have a lot of patching up to do in terms of the loans, but I can see what he's trying to do in the long run.
I think the good thing about Steve Bruce is that I got the impression with Crixley being a very modern type of manager, he was very happy for the recruitment team. I'm sure they used to sit down in the meeting and they say, right, we've got 4 players for these positions in it, and I think Crixley will probably go, yeah, okay, whatever, and get on with the coaching side of it. Steve Bruce, I can't imagine would be guided like that. I think if anything, Steve Bruce would guide David Downs and the recruitment team. I don't think Steve Bruce would say, yeah, okay, then we'll just tell me who you've got and I'll work with him. He doesn't need to do that. It'd be more a case of this is who I want, or I agree with that, let's go and get him. And I think he's more hands-on, and because of the vast experience I've got, I think he commands a bit more respect maybe. And I think he'll just have an awful lot more of an input into the signings. And he seems relaxed about it, doesn't he? I think that we obviously went for somebody, didn't quite get it over the line, but I don't think he's angry about it in any sort of direction towards the club. I think he's frustrated, but he's that experienced. He's been around a long time, and will happily wait until the summer, because it's still a tall order for us to get in the playoffs. But, there's only probably a couple of places in the top 6 up for grabs. But
at the end of the day, it takes us to continue this away form. And obviously start chipping away, and we'll be there or thereabouts. Bear in mind we had a torrid time when he sort of had his personal tragedy, his family's personal tragedy.
But we'd have
as well as the start of the season, of course. We'd be there or thereabouts. So I'm just a bit gutted that I think if we pulled together a couple of signs, I'm not saying this is anyone's fault. If Bruce is genuinely happy, and this was a bonus, this signing on deadline day, which we got close to, then fair enough. But he trusts the squad that he's got. He trusts Josh Onomah clearly, but I just think if 1 or 2, injuries, and we're basically screwed, especially in the centre mid point. The only thing is, could you move a Fire to centre mid and maybe put Jordan Gabriel in there, because a Fire's had experience of. So he's probably got a few cards up his sleeve, but ultimately we're probably 1 or 2 signings away from having a real strength in depth to push on for promotion. But the only thing we can say from here is we're going to enjoy most of the football come the end of the season, because Saturday was very enjoyable. We've got a good game to look forward to tomorrow with an informed Burton side. We've got another game on Tuesday, I think we have, isn't it, against Rotherham?
Rotherham, yeah.
So we've got a good amount of home games coming up. Obviously, 4 out of 5 with Cambridge and a few others to come, as well
Crawley.
as the likes of Wrexham, Birmingham, Crawley, a few others like that. So we've got some very winnable games at home, and I think one team will fall to Bruce's sword at home. There will be a game like Burton where we win 3 or 4-0, in my personal opinion, and there'll be some games where we get edged out of it, maybe with the likes of Birmingham's that come to us with the quality they've got. But if we continue this away form and chip away at home, we will factually be there or thereabouts. It just depends if we can accumulate enough wins in a row to keep pushing us up that table.
Well, a month ago we were 11 short of the playoffs. Now it's 6.
Yeah.
Without sort of, and that's still without winning a home game. So imagine if it kicked in at home and they still maintained, which
now's
I think
the time to do it, right? So
I think we're set up better away. But if he could just get that home form into sort of getting every 3 games, getting 7 points or whatever, then I think we can. Once you're within 2 or 3 points, it becomes a serious reality, doesn't it? It's just getting.
We saw this at the end of last season, didn't we? The moment we started winning a few away, the Carlisles, the Shrewsburys, and all of a sudden we needed to beat Red on the last day, and we would have been in. So I still have some hope. I'm not going to be that disappointed if we don't do it. My only caveat is when we lose the likes of a Fire, we lose, the loan signings that we've got. I just hope that we're in a position where we can build really well in the summer and we have a good summer to remember rather than one of turmoil again. So that will be the acid test, I suppose. But I'm looking forward to the last 18 games. I'm certainly looking forward to tomorrow as well. It'll be a good game.
Like last season, we were expected to be up there because we'd been up there all season, and our home form was dead good. I think this season, with all the turmoil of changing managers and Bruce being off for a month, I feel like we're in a bit of a. I called it a free hit the other week, and I know what I meant by that because it's sort of there's not massive expectation. Go for it. Yeah. We're not going down, so that's your first priority. That's not going to happen. Why not? Let's just go for it with what we've got. We've got no choice. We've got to go with what we've got. I mean, and for what it's worth, I do agree with Steve. The transfer window at this level is a joke anyway, because players now, if they're not playing, they're going to have to wait 5 months to play any football. It's so stupid at this level. It is a massive restraint of trade as well. It's poor, but we just have to get on with it. And I think he's down to earth enough to know that we've got a chance, but if it doesn't work out, he's already probably thinking about next season. And hopefully the recruitment team is more importantly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll call that pod, mate. Thanks for joining us. And I said that I think after Ed's comments, I'm really looking forward to seeing how we cope with an informed side, and especially the likes of Budvars, and they're players that those, in my opinion, Baggett and Casey should deal with. But it depends on how well they've got their momentum, and we've had a week to recover. I think Bloxham was on his last leg, so Files he's ran himself into the ground. So there should be just some rejuvenation in the squad, and we've got options to start and to finish games as well. So I'm looking forward to what tomorrow brings. A win would lay a marker down ready for Tuesday, and if we win Tuesday and Saturday, then we go into next week with some serious momentum, don't we? So I'm looking forward to the next couple of games to see what Bruce can do on the pitch, and we'll probably be back on either Sunday or Monday to review this game and look forward to Rotherham. But for now, mate, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, cheers. I think we're a top 6 side away from home. I think that's the way we have to look at it. I think the stats probably bear that out. We're probably.
Well, we are. We're third away from home.
So. Even better then. So I actually expect us to win tomorrow if we turn up and do what we have been doing. If that makes sense. If we play to our strengths, I think we'll win. Despite their improvements, I think we'll win the game. So, but if we have an off day, it could be another Leyton Orient. So let's hope it's not that.
Ooh. Right. Thanks for everyone in the comments. Thanks for getting involved tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to preview this game and talk a little bit about the Charlton game. But for now, we'll see you early next week, ready for the Rotherham game and to review this one. Good night.